So here's a trivia question of all time. What Carlson brother never played a Hanson in Slapshot? Let's step back a few seconds. The three Carlson brothers had played with the Johnstown Jets as the inspiration for the script for the famous Paul Newman hockey movie. His brothers, Steve and Jeff, were supposed to play all three of the Hanson brothers in the movie. Now, Jack was slated to play the role of Jack Hanson in the film, but he was offered a contract by the WHA Edmonton before filming began in '76 and was competing in the WHA playoffs when filming started. He was replaced by his former teammate, Dave Hanson, who was not related to the Carlsons, but yet he played a Hanson that wasn't related in real life to the Carlson brothers. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll move on. Today we're going to be talking about the interesting career of the very talented and the very, very durable, might as well say the valued enforcer for the Detroit Red Wings that eventually went to the WHA, Jack Carlson. Now, Jack was drafted in the 7th round, 117 overall, by the Detroit Red Wings. Native of the great Virginia, Minnesota. Played with Marquette of the USHL in his final season. Interesting statistics, ladies and gentlemen. 42 games, 42 goals, a goal a game pace, 29 assists for 71 points in 159 minutes and penalties in 42 games. Now, he was the MVP that year in the USHL and the All-Star first team again for Marquette. Now, he had been a star player at Virginia High School before even entering the USHL in 1972. Now, 6'3", 205, probably one of the biggest players to ever play for the Iron Rangers, that's what they're called. Now, he eventually skated with the Johnstown Jets, with his affiliate team of the Minnesota Fighting Saints, who he originally played for. Now, Minnesota had every indication to make him to a superstar, even though he was drafted 103rd overall in the '74 draft. Now, with Johnstown, interesting statistics again. 49 points in 50 games, 27 goals, mostly as a left winger who was reaping destruction with the Jets. 246 minutes and penalties, ladies and gentlemen. Now, he did play with Minnesota that year, 5 goals and 5 assists for 10 points and 85 minutes and penalties. Now, 76, he played a full season at WHA, 68 games, including 10 games with Edmonton, 9 goals, 11 assists for 20 points with 220 minutes and penalties. Now, 77, he split time between Minnesota and New England because of an ongoing situation where he was sold off during the season, along with Davey Keon, had 19 points that year in 71 games. Next 2 seasons, he played in New England, and because Minnesota owned his NHL rights by trade with Detroit, he played 3 seasons in Minnesota. Best campaign was 1981 with 9 points in 43 games. Moved on to St. Louis for 2 seasons, and then came back 3 years after retirement in a very unique situation that was covered by a lot of media for 8 games, but he had no points, and that was it for his major pro career. Now, he played 236 games in the NHL, 30 goals, 15 assists for 45 points, and had 25 NHL playoff games. Now, he did play in the '81 finals for Minnesota, but lost, and he was the penalty minutes leader that year in 1981 with 50. But really hurt him in the second half of his career were his major injuries. They really kicked in during the 1980s. He missed the entire 1980 season while recovering from spinal fusion. To repair a disc in his back, he first suffered the injury on April 4th, '79, during Minnesota's game at Chicago, and had the surgery during Minnesota's 1979 training camp. He returned to action on November 7, 1980. He also missed part of the '81 season with pulled muscle in his lower back, an injury he suffered in Minnesota's game at Quebec on November 26, 1980. He eventually set a Minnesota record since broken for penalty minutes in one playoff series with 48 versus Boston in 81. Now, he missed parts of the 82 season and part of the 82 playoffs with a bruised foot, back spasms, and a groin pull. Now, he's eventually left unprotected by Minnesota for the 82 NHL waiver draft and was claimed by St. Louis on October 4, 82. Now, he missed part of the 83 season with a shoulder injury that was a result from a rough fight with St. Louis strongman Jim Pavese in his September 82 preseason game between the Blues and Minnesota. He also had shoulder surgery during the 1983 offseason. He was eventually released by St. Louis in July 1984. Now, was he an enforcer? Was he a goon? No. The points say otherwise. But he ended up being one of the most feared fighters in NHL history. Just like Clark Gillies, if you took him on, big upper body strength, you were going to pay for it. Now, because the WHA again took him, Minnesota 132nd overall in round 9. He basically sets different records in the WHA. Now, he had the most penalty minutes in one season, 192 and 79 for New England, who was not considered a dirty team, but he was protecting or enforcing and watching their key players for the Whalers. Now, he did play 50 games for Johnstown that went on to win the NHL playoff title in 75, but was not with the team during the postseason. Now, in that 75 campaign, Carlson and his brother Steve and Jeff played together on the line for Johnstown. Anyway, because he could not go in the movie, Hanson took his place for the movie. Now, he was on the Minnesota WHA, a team that folded on February 27, 76, and was eventually signed as a free agent with Edmonton on March 10, 1976. Then he was claimed by Cleveland in the intra-league draft in June 76. Now, he was also in the Cleveland team that relocated to Minnesota that July. Eventually, he was sold with Mike Antonovich, Bill Butters, Dave Keon, Jean-Louis Levasseur, Steve Carlson, and John McKenzie by the financially troubled Minnesota squad to Edmonton just prior to the team's folding in January 77. Okay. Can you keep up? Him and his brother and a bunch of players. Then he was traded with Dave Keon, Steve Carlson, Dave Dryden, Ken's brother, and Johnny McKenzie, of all people, by Edmonton to New England for future considerations, which ended up being Dave DeBall, Danny Arndt, and cash in January 77. DeBall was then sent to New England to complete the deal in June 1977. Now, he missed part of the 78 playoffs with a back injury, then missed parts of the 79 season with a back and shouldering injury. Now, he was traded across leagues on February 1st, 79, when New England sent him to Minnesota for future considerations, one of the few cross-league trades. And I'm sorry a while ago, I meant to say he came in after expansion, but it was right before. It was very complicated. Now, he retired for the first time in 84, but came out of retirement to sign with Minnesota in November 86, and again played 8 games until he retired. Now, the nickname he had, I don't know if it was a rock and roll one, but depending on the hitter, he was called the Big Bopper. If you know that gentleman, he was a very famous rock star who died in the infamous Buddy Holly crash. Now, he's a younger brother of Jeff and the older brother of Steve, and that's about the best I can say, because when you were coming down the ice for Johnstown, you better clear. You would have had to clear the track because they were very impressive. Now, because he never signed with Detroit, he jumped to WHA, and the NHL rights to Carlson went to Minnesota, and there's no indication what the future considerations were. I'll have to check that out. So it's quite interesting. So what was Hollywood's loss was the WHA's gain, and not to sound quite weird, if you look at the photo here, boys, oh boys, oh boys, he had nice hair. Typical mid-1970s hair. You know, he looked like a bouncer for Leonard Skinner of all teams. But he said he was 6'3", 195. Ladies and gentlemen, he had to be bigger than that. I kid you not. I saw him play before. If anything, was 6'4", about 200. I mean, he was a big guy. So, if you're a Slapshot fan, that's the history of the Slapshot inspiration that was not in Slapshot. Mr. Jack Carlson, the Big Bopper. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you are a fan of the WHA, you got to be a fan of this talented player. Have a good day. Bye.